Thank you, João, Kelly, Maria. Thank you so much. Now, let's get the show on the road. We believe that anyone can learn a new language, but sometimes it can be more challenging for learners with special needs. So to kick off our day, here to show us how we can help these students with structure and flexibility is Samantha Lewis with her talk, Inclusive Formative Assessment for Secondary Learners. Welcome, Samantha. It's great to have you here. And ever since I started hosting, I get to interview our speakers. So you've been touring Brazil, right? This week, you've been to a bunch of places. What do you think is special about Cambridge Day in Brazil and having met so many teachers?
First of all, just like to say hello to everybody. Hello, Sao Paulo. How are you? Great. Yeah, as you say, for me, the most amazing thing about Cambridge Day is the whole initiative, the whole idea behind it, the whole idea of everybody giving something to somebody else. So you all bringing your donations here and then sharing ideas and getting something back. And I think that's the most, for me, the most inspirational thing about this day. And also, I'd just like to say, I've been to lots of places, and the most amazing thing in each place for me were the people that I met whilst I was there.
Aw, that's amazing. Well, this is yours.
Thank you.
The floor is yours. Have a wonderful time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, welcome everybody. I'd also like to welcome everybody who is joining us online today. Could you help me and say hello to them after 3? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so my name is Samantha Lewis. I'm from the UK, but I actually live in Madrid, in Spain. And a week later, they're still celebrating. And in Spain, as well as an author, I work as an academic manager and as a teacher trainer. Let me just explain this slide. So when I knew I was coming to Brazil, I have a couple of friends in Madrid from Brazil. One of them is from Sao Paulo, and the other one is from Porto Alegre. And I said to them, please tell me what you can about all of these places I'm going to visit. And the one thing they both coincided with about Sao Paulo was that you had the best coffee in the world. And every single restaurant under the sun, every type of cuisine under the sun. Okay, so back to what I do in Madrid. For the last 6 years, I've been working on a collaboration between the British Council and the National Organization for the Blind in Madrid, in Spain. And it's a very, very important organization there. And they work a lot with visually impaired and blind people to give them educational opportunities and training. And I've had the pleasure of working with them on the collaboration to understand how to deliver English lessons to blind and visually impaired learners. So that for me has been an enormous learning curve to learn how we have to adapt our methodology, how we have to make adaptations to our materials to make sure that learning is accessible to these learners. So that idea of how we can make learning accessible and inclusive for everybody was my starting point with this talk. So I will be taking a few ideas from there, but hopefully it's just to give you the idea of how we can make our learning as accessible as possible. So let's move on. This is what we're going to have a think about. First of all, just some key concepts relating to inclusion and learning, this idea of universal provision, and then obviously formative assessment, and then thinking about our SEND learners. And by SEND, I mean learners with special educational needs and disabilities. That's what we mean when we refer to SEND. Okay, I want us to obviously think about our role as teachers. I'd just like to find out first, could you show me, raise your hand if you teach primary learners? Okay, and secondary learners, teenagers? Okay, and adults? Okay, a bit of everything? Okay, so this is focusing on things that work in the secondary classroom, but they are completely adaptable to other life stages as well. So hopefully some of the ideas of the methodology and the activities you will be able to apply to your teaching context too. There are challenges with formative assessment, so we'll have a look at some of those, what can get in the way, and also then our strategies to help overcome some of those challenges. And then I'll invite you to do a final reflection at the end, so you can think about what you might want to take away from this and implement in your learning context. Okay, so when you walk into the classroom and you think, okay, I need to find out how my students are getting on, what they're learning, I know, I'll give them a test. And you walk in and you tell your students you're going to give them a test. What kind of reaction do you normally get? They're happy? Do they like tests? Usually not, no? But there are other ways as well. Obviously, when we're talking about formative assessment, we're constantly trying to find out what our students know without necessarily giving them formal tests. So I thought, okay, how can I find out what you already know about some of these key concepts? And I thought, shall I give you a test, or would you rather play a game? You'd rather play a game. Oh, well, that's lucky, because I have a game ready to play with you. Is anybody familiar with this? Can you put your hand up if you know this game? Okay, lots of you do. If you don't, you'll soon find out how we play. And this is a game which is, the reason why I like it, it's very flexible, it's very easy to play with learners to prepare. And we're going to bring it up on the screen now. Okay, it's coming. And I've got my helper as well who's going to help me with the game. So we play it in 2 teams. There it is. So we've got team 1 and team 2. Well, that's easy. Anybody who's sitting from here to the end, you are team 1, okay? And anybody sitting from here on this side of the room, you are team 2. Okay, hands up. Hands up if you're in team 1. Hands up if you're in team 2. Who's going to win? Okay, let's see. I'm going to start with team 1. I'm going to ask you to give me a number between 1 and 8. A question will come up. You answer the question. If you get the question correct, you get the points. Okay? So, first of all, team 1, give me a number. 5. Okay, I'm going to take 5. That was the loudest. And here is your question. So, team 1, how often should teachers share learning outcomes, monitor student performance, ask effective questions, and give useful feedback to learners? A, every lesson. Let's check if you're right. Of course, yes. So when we... 15 points. So when we are implementing formative assessment, every single lesson we're thinking about showing those learning outcomes, monitoring what our students are doing, yes? Asking the right kinds of questions. Are we asking questions that get them to tell us what they know? Or are we asking very closed questions where we're not getting as much information? Something to think about. Okay, team 2, which number would you like? I'm going to go with 7. That's the one I'm hearing the most. Okay, team 2, reflection is an important part of formative assessment. What do we think? Let's see. And yes, it's true. And we'll be having a look at different reflection activities that you can use with your students later. Team 1. 1. Okay, we'll go with number 1. Task repetition is a waste of time. We think that's false. Let's check. Absolutely. So this idea of task repetition, asking our students to repeat a speaking task, repeat or redraft some written work, is going to give them the opportunity to improve their output And then in the formative assessment cycle, we're going to be looking at better examples of their work to see what they know. Okay, team 2, what do you think? 2 for team 2, please. Oh. Okay, here's the question. How many points do you want to take from team 1? I'm sorry, team 1. 25. That's 25. Okay, team 1, time to get your own back. Which number? 6. I'm going to go with 6. Okay, universal provision refers to teaching strategies and activities designed to support SEND learners only. Okay, what do we think? Is that true or false? We think that's false. Let's check. Absolutely. We'll take a look at this in just a moment. But universal, the clue is in the word, is relevant for all of our learners. Okay, team 2, which number would you like? 4. Okay, let's go with 4. What type of assessment is often used at the end of a course to evaluate student learning, skill acquisition, and academic achievement? At the end of a course, would we use summative or formative assessment? Summative, we're saying, and let's see. Absolutely. Well done, team 2. Okay, team 1. Number 3, unanimous decision there. Number 3. Number 3, please. Okay, to teach SEND learners effectively, you have to be a specialist. Let's see. Absolutely. And we'll have a look at this in a little bit more detail too. Well done. Which means, team 2, you just have number 8 left. And that is the beauty of bamboozle. You just don't know how it's going to end. Well done, team 1. I'm sorry, team 2. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we're coming back to the presentation again. And I just wanted to come back to this because I think it's one of the key slides here. Have you seen this triangle before? So we've got this idea of specialist provision, targeted provision, and universal provision. And they're all necessary for different groups of students at different points. But that specialist provision would just be for a small group of students delivered by a specialist. So, for example, in the case of our blind learners, they are going to need to know how to use the Braille system of reading and writing. I can't teach them that. I'm not a specialist in that, but they would need that specialist input. And for targeted provision, again, if we thought about maybe learners with different low vision conditions, they might need enlarged text. That's something easier to prepare. It's something that you can provide in a sort of mainstream context, but it is specific to certain students who need it. And then we have this area of universal provision, which is good for all of our students. So this is something that we can all aim towards and all be providing accessible learning to everybody. And this can refer to, for example, do you create your own student worksheets or presentations? So when you're putting those together, you're thinking about, okay, is this accessible for everybody? Is the font size the right font size? Is the color contrast clear? Is the style of the font easy to read? I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but there are these sculpt guidelines. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it just basically is, as I say, it's a set of guidelines which you can follow, and they will help you to provide or to produce and create materials that respect all of these areas, okay, to make them accessible to your learners. For example, line spacing. If line spacing is too small on a document and you have dyslexic learners, they'll find it very difficult to know where one line finishes and the next one starts. So simply by increasing the line space and increasing the character spacing, you can make it easier for those students to read and access the materials. So it's small things like that, but something that we can all do. Okay, and I just wanted to finish this section with this quote here, because I think it sums it up quite nicely. That to a great extent, good teaching for pupils with SEND is good teaching for all. Okay, so when we're thinking about our formative assessment, it's part of a reflective cycle. And as teachers, these are all the things that we need to ensure that our students have. So I'd like you to just help me to reveal the missing words here. So we need to make sure our students have clear aims and learning outcomes. There it is, outcomes, objectives. Okay, so they know exactly what it is that they are learning. They need to reflect how? Systematically, yes. So it's not just a one occasion, something you do at the end of term. It's something that happens all the time, consistently. And we'll look at different ways that you can do that. And then the last one, they need to receive useful feedback from you as the teacher. So they know how to progress and they know how to fill in those gaps in their learning. Okay, so what is our role as teachers? We've got an awful lot going on in the quiz. We've got to be monitoring them, listening to them, giving them learning outcomes. Ever such a lot of things to think about. I've tried to summarize it here, all of these things here that we're doing as teachers. Clarifying the learning outcomes to share their objectives and success criteria. And gathering evidence of learning. How do we know that they're learning if we don't see evidence of that? So giving them opportunities to show you what they know, opportunities to produce spoken and written language, opportunities to, through the questions we ask, through pair work, through quizzes like Bamboozle. Then providing that useful feedback to help them to improve in those areas where they need to. And obviously encouraging student reflection, so they are part of their own learning process. They can see where they're making progress. They can see where they still need to improve. So we've got a lot of things to do in the classroom. Okay. Sorry. Just go through these again. This clicker's not working very well. Okay, so thinking about gathering evidence of learning, and we played this game Bamboozle, and any kind of quiz is a good way of finding out what your students know. The reason why I do like this particular game is it's easy to use, it's easy to prepare with the questions. It's free, it's online. It's also, certainly in Spain, there's been a lot of pushback recently of students using their own devices in the classroom. I don't know if that's the case in Brazil as well. And this is a game where they don't need to use their own device. So in that respect, it avoids that issue. And it is also very accessible. This is a game we've used a lot with blind learners, visually impaired learners, because you can read the questions out, they can hear the reactions if they get the question right or wrong. But I also wanted to mention another platform. Have you heard of Plickers? Anybody here? Could you show me your hands if you know this one? Only a few. Okay. And I wanted to mention it because, again, it's very, very inclusive and it's also very easy to use. It's free. It's online as well. And in a similar kind of way, the teacher prepares questions. So you can prepare the questions that you want to check with up to four possible answers, A, B, C, or D. And then it comes with a set of like mini QR codes like I think there's up to 40, and you assign one code to every student in the class, and each code is unique. And then depending on the way, you have to print them out, so they have a physical code on a piece of paper in their hands, and then depending on the way they hold up the code, that decides whether they think the answer is A, B, C, or D. And then the teacher, with their device, can just scan the classroom and automatically see who has the right answer and who doesn't. And it registers again with the set of questions, so you can go back and have a look at the results later. But they don't know between them who has the right answer or not, so there's no peer pressure. Nobody's going to feel awkward if they didn't get the answer right. And just from the point of view, again, of accessibility, obviously it is very accessible because everybody can use it. There's no pressure between students. But here, for example, for lower vision learners, we went around the outside so they could really see the shape and wrote the letters in big letters. And also, I don't know if you can see on the letter D, there are like 3 little dots, a sticker, and that's the letter in Braille. So even blind students could use this system and feel what the right letter was and hold it up. So something perhaps you want to have a look at after today. Okay, so we mentioned that there are things that can get in the way of formative assessment. It's not always plain sailing. Maybe our students don't understand what they have to do. They don't understand the learning outcomes. Or they get distracted. Does that happen in your classes ever? They're not looking at what they're supposed to be doing. They're chatting to their friends. They can't sit still, fidgeting, all sorts of things. A lot of students find writing challenging as well. And they might find writing challenging in Portuguese, in their own language. So obviously then when it comes to writing in another language, it's even more challenging for them. And speaking. A lot of students can feel incredibly anxious about speaking in front of their peers. They're worried about making mistakes. They just might feel shy. So that's obviously something that we need to help them with too. And if you ask them to reflect on their learning, they have no idea. They need help. They need structure, different activities to help to guide them through that process. So here we have some solutions to externalize, so making visible the learning outcomes and the success criteria so they can see exactly what they need to do. To keep the focus, we'll have a look at how we can do that as well in a minute. How to provide them visual support to help to organize their writing, organize their ideas, using graphic organizers and key language. And then how to practice presentations, how to vary the format to help boost their confidence when they have to speak. And then provide them with a variety of reflection activities. So let's think about externalizing these learning outcomes. And here we have a page from a course book. The focus is on describing a picture. Can you see the picture there? You recognize the picture, the artist? Okay. And then the speaking task itself comes towards the end of the page. They have to work in plans, plan a conversation, use certain areas of language, and then present it to another pair. It comes right at the end, but I think it's always worth mentioning at the beginning, before they start all the other activities, what they are going to be doing later. So they know that everything else is going to be helping them to work towards their final task. So it's something that you can share with them. By sharing those learning outcomes right at the beginning, they're already aware and conscious of what they're going to be working on later on. And you can elicit this success criteria with them or tell them, but in words that they understand. So sometimes these can-do statements, they summarize everything very clearly, but not necessarily for students. Sometimes they need a little bit more information and a bit more help to understand exactly what they mean. So for example, for this particular task, I might share this kind of thing with students. A little checklist that tells them to complete this task successfully, I need to plan a conversation with my partner to describe a painting. Well, what does that mean? It means I need to talk about what I can see and talk about how it makes me feel. How am I going to do that? Well, I need to use the present perfect. The present perfect can be used for a lot of different things. So let's give them an example to help to guide them. I might talk about the fact I haven't seen it before, or that I have seen it before. I'm going to use phrases from the useful language box. Well, these are the kind of phrases I need to talk about how it makes me feel or what it looks like. And then I'm going to have to perform the conversation to another pair. So I'm already conscious of that. And you can see that you could get them to tick off the success criteria as they work through them. Okay, we're going to think about keeping the focus now as well. And a lot of the times, yeah, we've mentioned this already, particularly students with SEND, they might struggle, have a dysregulation of their executive functions, which means that they're struggling with cognitive flexibility, their working memory, and inhibitory control. What does that mean? It means that they forget what they've got to do, they can't concentrate, they get distracted very easily, and they need constant reminders, and they find it very, very difficult to manage time and to understand how much time they've got on each task. So this is a very simple idea, and it's probably one that a lot of you already use. But even in the classroom, the information you have on the board in the classroom is incredibly useful and can be very effective. So you can see this board, this classroom board. On the right-hand side, obviously, you've got all the new language that comes up in the class. But on the left-hand side, we've got this class menu. And there are the timings in the middle, but the class menu doesn't specify how much time on each activity, but it just gives the running order of what the students are going to be doing. So they know that first they're going to watch something, then they're going to listen to something, and then they're going to have a break. And you can invite them to tick off the stages as you work through them. And this kind of menu, particularly for students with SEND, can really help them to stay focused and to understand what's coming next, when they're going to get a break, and how much more of the class they've got left to go. And we use this right from children, three-year-olds, obviously not with words, with pictures and symbols, and they can actually be part of that process and tick off as you work through them and complete them. And it's that sense of completion as well, which can really give help SEND students too. Oops. Sorry, technical issues. Okay, do you use timers? And they could be incredibly helpful as well to keep them focused. We have to be realistic about the timing, though, when we're using timers. So giving students the time that they need to complete the activity, because I have observed a lesson. I walked in and the teacher had a timer set for 45 minutes and the students were doing project work, but there was nothing beyond that. So for them, the timer it didn't mean anything. It needs to be much more realistic time for the activities that you're doing. This online stopwatch.com has got lots and lots of timers that you can choose from as well, if you're not familiar with it already. And brain breaks. Do you provide brain breaks? Yeah? Okay, I think we'll just finish this slide and then I think it's time for a brain break. And obviously have a fun activity at the end of the class, okay, for them to look forward to. You can have two that you want them to do and then just get them to choose the one that they want to, but that way, in a way it's your choice, but they think it's their choice. Okay, so time for a brain break. Everybody ready? I'm going to ask you to stand up in a minute. And this is quite nice if your students are getting fidgety and restless, to help them to focus. It's very simple. All you have to do is count down from 10 to 1. But when you count 10, you're going to connect your right elbow with your left knee. 10. Okay? When you count 9, your left elbow with your right knee. 9. Etc., etc. 8. Okay? So like everybody stand up. You're restless teenagers. So you're just so excited to stand up. Okay, are we ready? I'm going to start with 10, okay? Right elbow, left knee. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Can't hear you. 4, 3, 2, 1. Not bad. Not bad, but you can do better. This time we're going to do it again, but much, much faster. You ready? Go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, fantastic. You can sit down. I don't think this clicker is working. I don't know if you have another one. Okay. Okay, I'm going to be going as fast as the clicker will allow me to. Apologies there. So the next thing to keep the focus, and this seems really, really obvious, but the instructions, the way we give our instructions, and providing a visual copy of the instructions like this one here, you can chop it up and just give them number 1, then just give them number 2. But providing instructions in simple language, especially if you're working on projects, and then being able to cut them up and asking the students to cross them off as they go through. Do we have another clicker? This one doesn't work. Okay. I think it's out of battery. No? Okay. Okay. We talked about some students not struggling with writing, yeah? And one way of doing this is to provide them with visual support, graphic organizers. So for example, you've got here a couple of examples, and I think these can be really handy in helping them to sort of visualize what the whole piece of writing will look like, and organize their ideas especially. And it's something they can work on together as well in groups. So they don't need to just work on writing as an individual task. And that can also help to boost confidence when it comes to writing and to help them to understand the mechanics. So here you've got, for example, a travel blog organizer. Each student could then be responsible for part of that and write part of the final piece of writing. Or on the right, you've got a graphic organizer to help organize their ideas for essays, which they often have to write. Do you do presentations with your students? Yeah. Okay. Again, when you ask a student to just present something, it's a very difficult, challenging task. They need help in how to structure their ideas, how to organize them, what language to use to deliver each section of the presentation, as well as presentation skills themselves. I also like this one as well. It's very visual. You can sort of automatically see how the whole presentation fits together with the different sections, the introduction, the conclusion, and then the different ideas and details. And then you can also give them the kind of linking words or the discourse markers separately that they need to link those sections of the presentation together, because they need to know how the different parts fit together, when they're presenting. Okay, and another thing as well, making visible key language. This is an example of a speaking bank. So if you're doing a speaking task, giving them the language they need to actually complete the task, but easier language, so if they're a B2 level, giving them some examples that are a bit easier or a bit more complex, and that way, I know a lot of you have very large classes with lots of different levels within the same group. So this is one way that you can differentiate the material or the language that they need to use to help to cater for those different levels. If they feel confident about using a more difficult expression, they can have a go, and they've got the language there to look at. And similarly, for vocabulary, I mean, this is an example based on fruit, but it could be transport, could be climate change, could be sports. And just the idea of getting your students to build up a poster together, which would sit on the classroom wall, and they could refer to that. And they produce the poster, they take ownership of the language, they add their expressions and their words to it. And then when they come to do tasks throughout the unit, they can go back and they've got that language visible, because having the language visible, particularly for our SEND students, will help them, remind them of the language that they can use, and will motivate them to use it. Okay, then when we come to presentations, and some of you have mentioned that you do get your students to deliver presentations, there are some other things that we can do to help to boost the confidence and to help to vary, to give them a different format to help them feel more confident. So we've got a couple of examples here. One is this idea of using paper slides, and the other is a kind of art gallery presentation. So very different from your traditional one person stands up in front of a whole room and speaks, and something which I think is quite flexible and you could adapt to different learning contexts. So we're going to have a look at an example first of the paper slides presentation. We need to come out of this presentation to do that. Okay.
Hi, today I will be talking about 10 animal facts by Jasmine R. This is a Chinese water deer, and one fact about it is that a newborn is so small they can almost be held in the palm of a hand. This is an ostrich. One fact about it is that they can run faster than horses, and the males can roar like lions. One fact about dogs is that on average, dogs have better sight than humans, but not as colorful. Did you know male songbirds sing more than 2,000 times each day? A weird fact about cows is that they can sleep standing up, but they can only dream lying down. I have an unbelievable fact.
Okay. I think that's incredible. How on earth did they manage to find out that cows can only dream when they're lying down? Okay, but it's obviously a younger child delivering that presentation, but using a variety of language. Did you know one weird fact is, another fact is? But I think the important thing was that the focus wasn't on them, it was on the slides themselves. And it's that having that visual prompt obviously helps as well to remember what they need to say. But it also lends itself quite well to group or pair presentations. So you could get groups of students together to produce the slides and take turns to present a little bit each. So you're building it up gradually, not just throwing them into one big presentation individually. And then this idea of an art gallery presentation, the way this works is that you would set your classroom up like an art gallery and have your different groups of students around the room, maybe 4 students in each group. One stays with the presentation and delivers the presentation to their peers, whilst the others rotate around the classroom and go and listen to the other presentations. And that way they get to deliver to smaller groups, so it's less intimidating. They also get to repeat the task as they repeat the presentation over and over again, so it gets much better the next time they deliver it. And they have got the opportunity for them to give each other some feedback. So 2 different formats that you could also try. Okay. Peer feedback, though, it can be difficult. If you ask your students to give feedback to each other, they don't really know what to say. You do need to guide them in this as well. So one thing you can do is, for example, if they were giving a presentation, not just think about the language, but all the other little things that go into speaking. So things like one of the students could look out for how their peer uses eye contact. Another one, how they use their voice. The body language, how they use their body language, vocabulary, their ideas, and their timing. Because all of these things go into a presentation. It's not just the language that we're using. So it's a way of involving them in that. Okay, so now we've come on to reflecting. And we mentioned before, this is an important part of formative assessment, but it can be difficult for students if they don't have any direction, any guidance with this. So I've brought in some reflection activities here in the word cloud. There are 7, but they're all mixed up. Each one has 2 words. So I'm just going to give you a minute to have a look at those and see how many reflection activities you can see in the word cloud. You can tell the person next to you if you spot any. Okay, I'm going to bring up another cloud with all the answers so you can see how many you got. Did anybody have a look? Did anybody get them all? Show me your hand if you identified all of them. Anybody get 3 or 4? Okay, well done. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these ideas that you can use for reflection. This idea of a KWL chart, are you familiar with these? Yeah? Okay, so what do they stand for? Well, the K is, this is something you would do at the beginning, no? The beginning of a module or a unit to find out what your students already know. So you're gathering evidence, finding out what they already know. That's the K. And then the second column, what they want to know. This is the most interesting one because there you're finding out what they want to learn in the unit, depending on what the topic is. And then at the end, they reflect on those areas they wanted to learn and they identify what they have learned. And you can vary it a little bit. You might decide that once they've identified what they want to learn, you've got this extra stage. Well, how am I going to do that? If it's, I don't know, on space exploration and they've got all these questions they want to answer, how are they going to find that out? Are they going to do some online research? Are they going to interview each other? Are they going to talk to someone in their families? Are they going to talk to the teacher? But thinking of ways they can do that. If they're going to research online, which websites are they going to use? Helping them there. Or maybe when they get to the end and they identify what they've learned, they might have more questions that they want answering. So there you can add another stage to it too. And these reflection charts are in the project books as well, with Own It and Shape It, which you can get copies of from the Cambridge One platform. When it comes to writing, we've already mentioned they do, some students find writing challenging, but they often make the same mistakes as well in their own writing. So this idea I thought was really nice, to keep a notebook of their personal mistakes. And then when they're checking their writing next time, they could just start with those mistakes that they usually make and see if they can correct any of those themselves before they give it to the teacher. Because that way they can sort of gradually stop making the mistakes, but it might take some time. So it's always useful to have the checklist. Okay, so now we're getting towards the end. Almost time for me to exit the stage. Do you use exit tickets with your students? And they're a really nice way, of ending the lesson. You can personalize them. You can change. You can have the same one for the whole class. You can have different ones. They can write them. Or reflection prompts like this. But I just wanted to leave you with a kind of variation on this idea as well, which I thought was quite nice, which is exit ticket dice. So you can prepare 6 different prompts. And they don't need to necessarily refer to the language they've learned. It could be how they felt that day. or it could be something they liked about the lesson. And each one refers to a different number, and then you can either roll a dice for the whole class, or maybe in groups, they get a dice and they get to roll it and choose a prompt and ask each other give their reflection to each other. Okay, so I just wanted to finish by having a look at some of the ideas, reminding you of some of the things we've talked about. A moment for you to maybe think which of those ideas might be relevant to your teaching context that you'd like to try out. Some of them you already know, some of them might be new. And then just come back to this slide again. So all of this good practice, this good teaching that we do to cater for our SEND students isn't just relevant for them, it's relevant for all of our students. So taking time to give clear instructions, taking time so they understand what they need to do, giving them opportunities to reflect, all of that not only benefits our SEND students, it benefits all of our students. Muito obrigada. Thank you very much for listening. You have the links here. Could we put the links back again? Could we just put the links back for a second? Okay. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Obrigada.